Margaret Torres wiped down the marble countertop one more time, her yellow cleaning gloves squeaking softly against the stone. At 32, she'd learned that honest work had its own dignity, even if others didn't always see it that way. The Bennett mansion sprawled, across 3 floors of pristine, white walls and gleaming fixtures. Margaret had worked there for 6 months now, caring for the home and, more importantly, for Mr. James Bennett's twin boys, 8-month-old Lucas and Ethan. James was a kind man, quiet in his grief. His wife had passed during childbirth, leaving him to navigate fatherhood alone while running his investment firm downtown. He was 54, with graying temples and tired eyes that sometimes held a faraway look. Margaret understood that look. She'd lost people too. A pause let it settle. The head housekeeper, Patricia Sutton, was another matter entirely. 60 years old with perfectly coiffed silver, hair in a spine, as rigid as the mahogany banister she often gripped while giving orders. Patricia had worked for the Bennett family for 30 years and considered the household her personal domain. She'd never approved of Margaret. "Girls like you," Patricia would say, her lips pressed thin, "shouldn't get ideas above their station." Margaret never quite understood what ideas Patricia thought she harbored. She simply loved the twins, their gurgling laughter, their tiny fingers wrapping around hers, the way they'd settle against her shoulder when they were tired. Let the moment breathe. That Tuesday morning started like any other. James had left early for a meeting in Philadelphia, wouldn't return until Thursday. Patricia moved through the house with her usual efficiency, inspecting Margaret's work with narrowed eyes. "The bathroom on the 2nd floor," Patricia announced at 10 o'clock. "It needs a thorough cleaning. Take the twins with you. Keep them occupied while you work." Margaret nodded, gathering Lucas and Ethan into the double carrier. She wore across her chest and back. They were getting big now, solid and warm, their heads bobbing as she climbed the stairs. The bathroom was spacious and bright, all white tile and chrome fixtures. She set her cleaning supplies down and began working, while the twins dozed against her, their breath soft and rhythmic. A gentle shift in tone. She didn't hear Patricia's footsteps, didn't realize anything was wrong until she heard the sharp click of the lock from outside. Margaret straightened, her heart beginning to pound. She tried the handle, locked solid. "Mrs. Sutton?" she called out, keeping her voice calm for the babies. "Mrs. Sutton, the door's locked." Silence. "Mrs. Sutton, please." "The twins are with me." More silence, then Patricia's voice, cold and clear through the door. "Mr. Bennett needs to understand that you're not indispensable, Margaret, that you're careless. When he finds his sons locked in a bathroom because of your negligence, perhaps he'll finally see sense and hire someone appropriate." Margaret's blood ran cold. "You can't." "I can, and I have. I'll be in my quarters with my headphones on, listening to my programs. Take your time making noise. No one will hear you. Mr. Bennett won't be home until Thursday evening. That gives me plenty of time to discover you and spin whatever story I choose." Footsteps receded down the hall. Let the fear settle, but gently. Margaret looked down at the twins. They were stirring now, Lucas's face scrunching up in pre-cry mode. Her phone, she'd left it on the kitchen counter, charging. No landline in the bathroom. The window was too high and too small, even if she weren't carrying 2 babies. She did the only thing she could. She sank down onto the cool tile floor, adjusted the carriers so the boys were comfortable, and began to think. The twins would need feeding in a few hours. There was water from the tap, but no food, no diapers, no way to keep them comfortable for long. Patricia had miscalculated, though, or perhaps she simply didn't care. The twins weren't props in her cruel game. They were real babies who would need real care. A note of warmth entering. Margaret began to talk to them softly. She told them about her grandmother's garden in Texas, about the bluebonnets that bloomed every spring. She sang them lullabies her mother had sung to her. "You are my sunshine and amazing grace." When Lucas began to fuss, she stood and swayed, the movement soothing him back to drowsiness. Ethan watched her with solemn blue eyes, so like his father's. Hours passed. The afternoon light shifted across the tile. Margaret used dampened towels to keep the babies cool and comfortable. She tore apart the cardboard toilet paper, rolls, and let the twins play with them, anything to keep them calm. She thought about Patricia's words. Someone appropriate. Margaret had heard variations of that her whole life. Not quite fitting in, not quite measuring up to someone else's invisible standard. But sitting on that bathroom floor, keeping two motherless babies calm and safe, Margaret realized something her grandmother had tried to tell her years ago. Your worth isn't determined by other people's narrow vision. It's measured in moments like these, in patience, in love, in simply showing up. A shift, hope emerging. Wednesday morning came. The twins were restless, hungry. Margaret felt the weight of helplessness pressing down on her chest. But she kept singing, kept swaying, kept offering what comfort she could. That's when she heard it. A voice, distant but clear. "Margaret! Margaret!" James Bennett's voice, tight with panic. "We're here!" Margaret shouted. "Second floor bathroom. We're locked in." His footsteps thundered up the stairs. The door rattled. "Stand back from the door." A moment later, wood splintered. James had put his shoulder through the door frame, breaking the lock entirely. He stood there in his wrinkled suit. Having clearly driven through the night, his face pale with fear and fury and relief all mixed together. Gentleness in the reunion. "I came home early," he said, his voice shaking as he took in the scene. Margaret on the floor, the twins safe in their carriers, the makeshift toys scattered around. I had a feeling something was wrong. Patricia was in her room, headphones on, claimed she hadn't seen you since yesterday morning, said you'd probably taken the day off without permission. He knelt down, checking over his sons, his hands trembling slightly as he touched their faces. "You kept them safe." "Of course," Margaret said simply. "They're just babies." They needed someone. A pause, letting wisdom emerge. James Bennett was a man who'd built an empire on reading people, on seeing through facades. He saw through Patricia's story in minutes. By Wednesday afternoon, the older woman was gone, her 30 years of service ending in disgrace. But that wasn't the part that mattered to Margaret. What mattered came later, when James sat across from her in the kitchen, the twins finally fed and sleeping peacefully in their nursery upstairs. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have seen what was happening." Patricia always had strong opinions about who belonged in this house. Margaret cupped her hands around a mug of tea. "People carry their prejudices like old photographs," she said softly. "They don't see what's real, only what they expect to see. What you did, keeping them calm for all those hours, making it a game, keeping them safe, that takes more strength than most people have." A gentle truth. Margaret smiled. "My grandmother used to say that kindness isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up in the small moments, especially when no one's watching. Those boys needed someone to show up. So I did." James was quiet for a long moment. "Will you stay? As their nanny officially?" "I know what happened was—" "I'll stay," Margaret said. "If you'll have me." Relief flooded his face. "You're not what Patricia said you were. Inappropriate. Or careless or any of those things." "No," Margaret agreed. "I'm just someone who sees two little boys who need love and care. The rest, my background, my education, whatever Patricia decided, I wasn't. None of that matters when you're locked in a bathroom with two babies who need you to keep it together. The resolution, warm and true." In the months that followed, something shifted in the Bennett house. It became softer, warmer. James started coming home earlier, joining Margaret for the twins' bedtime routine. They'd sit together in the nursery, watching Lucas and Ethan drift off to sleep, and sometimes they'd talk about loss, about hope, about the unexpected ways life brings people together. Margaret never framed herself as a hero. She was simply someone who'd shown up in a hard moment and done what needed doing. But sometimes, late at night when the house was quiet, she'd think about her grandmother's garden and smile, because she'd finally understood what her grandmother had been trying to teach her all along. Your worth blooms from within, steady and sure, regardless of who's watching or what they believe you deserve. A final gentle breath. And in a white mansion with marble countertops, and two growing boys who reached for her. Every morning with absolute trust, Margaret Torres had found exactly where she belonged. Not because someone finally decided she was appropriate, but because she decided she was enough. And that in the end made all the difference.